Whether it's World at War, Black Ops 1, 2, or 3, or the short notice success of Cold War, Treyarch consistently excels when it's their time to shine. However, there's one exception: Black Ops 4, a game considered by most to be the worst entry in the series. So what happened? What led to the blemish and what has otherwise been a nearly perfect track record? Let's unpack. Before we talk about Black Ops 4, however, I would like to rewind all the way back to 2008. Treyarch was releasing its second game in the COD franchise after COD 3, a game that was well received, but many claimed it didn't innovate much compared to the previous two COD titles. In a position where many would probably fold, tasked with following the single greatest COD to date, the original Modern Warfare, Treyarch rose to the occasion, releasing Call of Duty World at War, a venture back in time to World War II that aimed to step up the realism. The campaign, considered the most realistic depiction of the World War II struggles to date, was a notable achievement. World at War also included a solid multiplayer mode that took significant steps from Treyarch's previous release. Last but not least, World at War included the debut of the most innovative second mode in COD history: Zombies. With the next title, they decided to take what worked and make it better across the board. Black Ops 1 provided a more compelling and lengthier story with memorable characters and fleshed out relationships that added emotional depth to the narrative. The multiplayer also included a slew of diverse maps, engaging and fun gameplay, and was balanced to provide a good experience for both casual and competitive players alike. Of course, we can't forget about Zombies, continuing and expanding upon the experience and the story, with the classic Kino der Toten coming on release, as well as a slew of amazing maps that came throughout the DLC releases. Package all this together, and you have a game that to this day is the best-selling Call of Duty game of all time. Now, who doesn't love a good sequel? Everything that Black Ops 1 was to World at War, Black Ops 2 is to Black Ops 1. Black Ops 2 is considered by many, including myself, to be the best Call of Duty of all time. Undoubtedly a top 3 for any veteran COD fan if you ask them. Dropping another incredible campaign that included the return of fan favorites from Black Ops 1, multiplayer was also the best in the series, implementing amazing features such as the Pick 10 system, which was a revamp of the Create a Class system, which allowed a ton of customization options. It also introduced the addition of score streaks, promoting objective play and creating more competitive landscape overall. I'm sure I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but Zombies also hit the mark for all the undead enthusiasts. Treyarch made a serious attempt at larger scale and more expansive map experiences in this Zombies, some of which really didn't work, and others created an experience that is just breathtaking. Firmly entrenched in the jetpack era of COD, with Advanced Warfare having been released a year before, 2015 marked Treyarch's return and the release of Black Ops 3, a game with heavy expectations and a massive amount of hype behind it. Black Ops 2 previously was nearly perfect, and Black Ops 3, not perfect, but honestly, a fantastic entry in the series, taking a system that many people were not big fans of in jetpacks and refining the movement with wall running and power sliding to a point where even the most loyal boots on the ground fans had to admit it was pretty smooth. If anything about the game was considered a bit disappointing for the viewer, it was the campaign, an overcomplicated and downright confusing story that allowed for some innovations that were overall a mixed bag. But as with all the other Black Ops series games, this one once again featured zombies, and to avoid redundancy, it might just offer the best Zombies experience in the entire series. Now that you're all caught up, let's move on to the subject of the video, the infamous 4th installment in the most successful and beloved series in the franchise. Released in 2018, it followed up an underwhelming but also underrated Call of Duty World War II, which marked a return to boots on the ground. At this time, COD was in a bit of a downward trend, not quite in the same place they are today, but also not a yearly hype train like they were doing in prime years of their existence. The jetpack era was still leaving a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of the player base, and the gaming landscape was just in a different place than it was before. No matter the stage of popularity or the current reputation of COD games, no matter what kind of mess Infinity Ward or Sledgehammer made in the previous entry, Treyarch has been the old reliable. So expectations remain high for them to give you an enjoyable experience to find some way to improve upon the last. It may come as a shock to many of you that Black Ops 4 is widely considered to be the worst release in the entire Black Ops series. So, what happened? Let's start with the multiplayer, something that Treyarch has had virtually no complaints in their entire history. Unfortunately for them, this game has its fair share of them. I will begin by saying the multiplayer in this game isn't bad at its core. This is still Call of Duty. However, those classical Treyarch innovations that they love to make with each yearly release really missed the mark this time. To begin with the biggest of the changes, the altering of the health system. Black Ops 4 decided to do away with the traditional overtime regeneration that all previous Call of Duty games had. If you didn't take damage for a short period, you would start to regenerate back up to full, but not in Black Ops 4. The healing was instead replaced with stim shots, an equipment you would use that would rapidly heal you back up to full. This may not sound like a terrible idea, perhaps one that would take traditional COD player a bit to get used to, but maybe you could argue it forced a more strategic mindset with the gameplay. However, there are two big issues with the way this was done in practice. Firstly, the health was increased in Black Ops 4 to 150, giving you 50% more health to work with. This obviously made it take longer to get kills, and this change was definitely noticeable. And in certain situations, would be the difference between you getting a kill and allowing your opponent to scurry away behind cover. Consider the number of times on normal health you've been one bullet from finishing a kill and the player escapes. Well, it happened even more often in Black Ops 4. So you might be thinking, just get good. If you simply had 100% accuracy like me, you wouldn't have this issue. While you're technically correct, that is where stims come into play. Imagine the scenario we just talked about, but instead of the opposing player needing to sit behind cover patiently, awaiting the health regen, they have a regen stick sitting in their inventory that can be used in an instant and also regenerates faster than the regular regen time. Now, the stim shot itself has a cooldown, so surely that must balance that out, right? Wrong. The stim shot cooldown is so unbelievably short, by the time you get the opposing player into a low health range, they almost surely got the stim back. So if you happen to be having an off day and your accuracy drops from 100% down to 95 and you miss a shot, by the time you've recovered, your opponent is likely already back to full health. So while this, in theory, wasn't a bad idea, in practice, the increased TTK plus the stim shots and insignificant cooldown make each player feel like they're playing Overwatch, trying to kill a roadhog, instead of playing COD, trying to kill a military soldier. Now, we're not even done with the multiplayer complaints yet. Now, at this point in time, many of the bugs, glitches, and server issues had been fixed, as Treyarch worked tirelessly to put the game into a playable state. However, on launch, the game was a bit of a mess. It was almost impossible to get through a session of playing the game without it crashing. It didn't matter what platform you played on. PC, Xbox, PlayStation, nobody was safe. A practically unplayable experience. Shortly thereafter, the game would actually become unplayable as it would inevitably freeze at some point. I won't go into much detail beyond that about connection problems, as again, the game right now is definitely in a much better state. However, it's worth mentioning as this certainly hurt the reputation and the overall player count of the game as a whole. Remember, first impressions are key in the gaming world. Perhaps the most significant complaint about the game is its absolutely predatory microtransaction system added after launch. Integrated into the black market was a Fortnite-style battle pass, a system not entirely surprising given the implementation in many other games. However, what had the player base up in arms was the inclusion of weapon bribes within the battle pass, allowing players to select from a pool of available DLC weapons. Having the weapons confined within the battle pass on its own is pretty scummy, but the battle pass progression was an absolute mission, making it nearly impossible for casual players to complete the battle pass or even make it part of the way through to obtain a weapon bribe without grinding their life away or opening their wallet. To make it through an entire battle pass, one would have to grind approximately 200 hours. If players felt they didn't have time for that, they could always pay the super cheap price of $200 to expedite the process. The system persisted in the game for nearly the entire life cycle before they finally decided to make the weapon bribes a bit easier to access, just in time for the player base to move on to the next Call of Duty. There are certainly other things to complain about with the multiplayer experience, such as the changes to the minimap with Fog of War system, a slew of balance problems, some of which still exist to this day, and a reduced tick rate from the beta to the actual release. But despite these problems, the multiplayer isn't awful. If you're willing to ignore a handful of changes that will have you wondering, who asked, you could certainly get your enjoyment out of the gunplay. The return of the Pick 10 system, perhaps find fun in the slightly watered down version of the Specialist system in comparison to Black Ops 3, and with the SBMM troubles in our current era of COD, this is one of the last releases that you could simply just turn your brain off and play casually with some friends. Alright, it's zombies time. The multiplayer didn't quite hit like we thought it would, but Treyarch is great when it comes to releasing a well-rounded game. We can just stick to zombies this year. Zombies over the years has had its ups and downs, but it also provides something for the fans to enjoy and has never been an overall disappointing experience. Wait, what do you mean people don't like it? Zombies in Black Ops 4 falls into a very similar problem as multiplayer, making changes that nobody asked for, that on paper seem interesting, but in practice alter integral parts of the game that players have loved for a decade. A complete overhaul of the perk system and the difficulty system, a struggle to make quality maps. Even when remaking previously incredible maps like Mob of the Dead and 5, somehow it all turned out to just seem so lifeless, or perhaps undead. Treyarch decided that the classical system of finding a perk machine, enjoying the jingle for a moment, then purchasing and drinking was no longer something they wanted. Knowing that nearly every single zombie run resulted in the purchase of Juggernog and some variety of the other 3 core perks, Speed Cola, Double Tap, Quick Revive, Treyarch decided that they wanted to remove these core perks and implement them in some aspect of the gameplay. Double tapping is now coming from pack-a-punching your weapon 5 times. Quick Revive being replaced with a self-revive feature, and Speed Cola coming from the purchase of 4 perks, and Juggernog being removed entirely, and instead players having the ability to set a difficulty which would alter your health pool. This is something that on paper is understandable and allows for a more personality-based perk selection. However, when you change a core aspect of a beloved mode, people are going to be annoyed. The perk machines brought so much personality to the game itself. And yeah, if you're playing a solo game, needing to grab Jug and Quick Revive leaves you with only 2 slots left, and upwards of 7 other perks to select from can be a bit annoying. But that's the gamble of zombies. Micromanaging what the perfect setup would be given your playstyle and situation. Integrating the crutch perks into an aspect of the playthrough while making the choices more abundant removes a lot of the gamble and makes each choice feel less significant. The maps and the connecting storylines also felt rushed and passionless. A return to the Ether story after what felt like a good ending point in Black Ops 3. A chaos story that is a bit confusing to follow, all mixed together in a game that can't seem to find a direction. Bringing back 2 iconic maps in Mob of the Dead and 5, but once again making changes to them to make the experience worse. It's insane how a developer that was a staple of innovations that were fun and engaging has found a way to miss on nearly every innovation provided in this title. They once made innovations and changes to the game in a bid to improve what was already there. With Black Ops 4 multiplayer and now zombies, it has seemed as though the changes were being made for the sake of being different. The changes don't make the game a more fun experience. They replace an already enjoyable and nostalgic aspect with changes that don't really feel inspired. Okay, so the last hope for Treyarch is the campaign. They didn't land super well with Black Ops 3, but let's see how they bounce back with this one. They don't have a campaign. What have they been doing the whole time? If you think back to the year 2018, there was one thing that was absolutely ruling over the gaming world: battle royales. Leading the charge was none other than Fortnite. Fortnite was seeing success unlike anything we'd seen in a long time. An innovative, flashy, and goofy free-to-play battle royale that took the world by storm. So naturally, when something is doing well, every other game must copy them. Because money, of course. Now, I would like to take this moment to cut Treyarch a little bit of slack. Many of the issues we talked about previously were most certainly a trickle-down effect of this decision. Something that most likely wasn't even made by Treyarch, but rather by the publisher ruling over all of these games, Activision. One thing we definitely are all aware of is that Activision loves money. And when they saw the success of Fortnite, they wanted to get in on that action. So Treyarch presumably had already been working on Black Ops 4 for as many as 2 years prior. Campaign included leaks of around 400 photos of concept art, storyboards, early mission planning, and more were found, as well as details regarding the potential story and its taking place after the events of Black Ops 3. But alas, with money signs in their eyes, Activision stepped in and told them that a battle royale mode needed to be implemented. And that mode was Blackout. A mode that may come as a surprise actually turned out quite well. Treyarch still deserves a piece of the flack because they released the product, and it's not as if Activision wasn't looming over them the entire time they've been releasing titles. Perhaps in this case though, Activision stepped a bit too far into the development side and ruined what could have been another well-made Black Ops release. Despite all this, Blackout was a massive success. A success, however, that didn't come without a cost. A rushed development cycle to attempt to turn out a good battle royale title meant a loss of resources being put towards other aspects of the game. This resulted in the rushed out, unbalanced multiplayer experience that felt just like a remake of Black Ops 3 multiplayer without jetpacks, and a rushed out and passionless zombies mode that seemed like another developer trying to capture what made zombies good in the past, and due to time constraints, the inability to even complete a campaign mode on time. As I mentioned, Blackout itself was received very strongly once Treyarch fixed the massive connection issues that plagued everything on launch. A PUBG-like experience on the Call of Duty engine, a massive map with plenty of notable landmarks from previous COD titles, vehicles that added a fast and dynamic element to the mode. The mode also got a majority of updates and changes throughout the Black Ops 4 lifecycle. It was great news for Battle Royale fans, but a disappointing turn of events for fans of the classic Black Ops game modes. So, despite the reception of Black Ops 4, Treyarch still remains a favorite in the COD community. They have since released Cold War, a game which is similar to Black Ops 3, was developed during an era when COD wasn't at its best reputation-wise. Like Black Ops 4, Cold War was also rushed out by Activision, but this time, it managed to release a game that was well received by most. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad either. So the question is, what are your thoughts on Treyarch moving forward? Does the release in 2024 taking place in the Gulf War excite you? What about the leaks of potential Black Ops 2 sequel? Will Treyarch finally lead Call of Duty back to the top of the mountain in gaming? Leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.